Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for March 20th, 2018. On today's show, we'll be talking about film news, followed by a feature presentation with Slash Film managing editor Jacob Hall, talking about the best and worst things he saw at South by Southwest 2018. Joining me for the news are Slash Film writers Hoai-Tran.
Hey, everyone.
And Chris Evangelista.
Hello.
This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta. Not that if you're listening to this podcast, you probably already know that. But guys, let's just jump into the news. There's a story that I've been wanting to get onto the podcast the last couple podcasts, but it just didn't make it, and I wanted to have HT on to talk about it because she wrote it up. And that is, Shia LaBeouf is going to play Shia LaBeouf's father in a Shia LaBeouf biopic? What do we know about this, HT? This sounds crazy.
It sounds a little bit crazy, but if you look into it, it actually sounds like quite an impactful story. So, Shia LaBeouf will be starring in a Shia LaBeouf biopic, but he won't be playing himself. That honor goes to Lucas Hedges, who is the Oscar nominee for Manchester by the Sea, and you might also remember him from 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, and Lady Bird last year. So Lucas Hedges will be playing a young Shia LaBeouf during his Even Stevens era, and the film, which is called Honey Boy, will detail the relationship between Shia LaBeouf and his alcohol-abusing father during their tumultuous relationship in Shia LaBeouf's early years in his acting career. So it's a film that is actually based off of Shia LaBeouf's life. So it's not going to be having the real names of the characters. It will be Roman Clef style, which is changing the names of the characters and fictionalizing the real events of LaBeouf's life. So Shia LaBeouf co-wrote this screenplay called Honey Boy, and he wrote it under a pseudonym called Otis Lort, which he revealed was his pseudonym in an Esquire story earlier this week. And he wrote it, and it landed on the Blacklist, where it was picked up and will be directed by Alma Harrell. So the description according to the Blacklist is: a child actor and his law-breaking, alcohol-abusing father attempt to mend their contentious relationship over the course of a decade. So it will be sort of more of like a father-son relationship story, and like with Hollywood as kind of the backdrop of it. And you will be able to tell that it's based off of LaBeouf's life, but it's not going to have his actual name. And Shia LaBeouf went into his sort of troubled relationship with his father in this this Esquire piece that I just mentioned, and his father was sort of his motivation for getting into the acting industry, as well as an obstacle in a way, because he was a performer as well, a clown performer, but he also struggled with heroin addiction, and Shia LaBeouf himself ping-ponged between 12 Steps program with his recovering drug addict father and his acting career. So he's had a troubled childhood, and that may actually be a good material for the film that we're going to see.
This sounds so interesting. I'm wondering, is this going to be a good movie, or is this just going to be a big screen therapy session for Shia?
It might be both.
Or both, yeah. I mean, great art always comes from, some personal struggles, I think. But let's move on to a bit of sad news, and that is John Musker, who is the co-director of Aladdin, Moana, and a lot of the Disney classics in the 1990s, is retiring from Disney. Chris, you wrote this up for the site. What do we know?
Yeah, so John Musker, he's retiring after 41 years with Disney. He directed, like you say, Aladdin. He also directed The Little Mermaid, Hercules, Treasure Planet, The Princess and the Frog, and the most recent one was Moana. He directed that with his co-director Ron Clements. He directed all these films with Ron Clements, and yeah, he just he got his start in the late 70s at Disney as a character animator, and then moved on to directing. And it's a little sad because this feels like it's like one of the last few links to Disney's like traditional like hand-drawn cell animation. I mean, the CGI Disney films are great. They look great, but there's a part of me, I don't know if it's like nostalgia or what, but there's a part of me that misses that, that old school actually animated Disney look, and I guess they're never going to go back to that. But this is it's like one more link to that past being severed by him retiring.
Oh, for sure. And I believe he was mentored by one of the famous 9 old men who Walt Disney employed. So yeah, I don't know. It's very strange because I interviewed John Musker for Moana, and like he just seems. I mean, sure, he's an old guy, but he seemed like he was more energetic and excited about animation and making more movies. And I'm kind of just don't know what to make of this because I don't know. Talking with him, even off the record, it seemed like he was interested in doing more stuff. So I don't know. It's kind of sad. I know. I'm sure. HT, you kind of grew up with the Disney movies of the 1990s, so I'm sure he has, directed some of your favorite Disney animated films.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I also am on the same side as Chris in mourning the sort of death of hand-drawn animation. We haven't seen one of those from Disney since The Princess and the Frog, and The Princess and the Frog's sort of middling box office performance kind of killed our chances of seeing another hand-drawn animated film. And I'm really sad about that because I feel like hand-drawn animation, there's just a warmth to it that you won't really get with CGI. And yeah,
I still have really faith that we can get a hand-drawn animated film from Disney at some point. I mean, everybody in that company loves that medium. For the longest time, I've been pitching this idea of like, why not do a Roger Rabbit where like there's the world of animation and there's kind of like the ghetto, which is the 2D world. And like, all those people have kind of been forgotten, and it's, you can incorporate, 3D computer drawn, a computer rendered animation and hand drawn animation in kind of like a Roger Rabbit type style. But I'm not sure if that would do business. I'm not sure. Like, I know I've talked to, I don't have a lot of relatives that are younger, but I've talked to some kids, and, when they look at 2D hand-drawn animation, they think it looks bad.
Well, they're wrong.
But it's just weird. Like, that's just such a weird mindset, because I think some computer-rendered animation, especially stuff on TV that has a lower budget, looks much worse than the best hand-drawn animation, especially from, like, Studio Ghibli and the Disney classics. But let's move on to an accident that happened in the movie theater. I was joking on our Slack channel that we thought that the uprising of AI robots were going to be the ones to kill us and do us in, but as it turns out, it is the posh movie theater experience that is coming to most of the upscale movie theaters. HT, what do we know?
The furniture is attacking us, Peter. So a Birmingham, UK man has died in a freak movie theater accident involving one of the sort of posh reclining seats that you've been seeing popping up in a lot of high-end movie theaters. It's the kind where you have a little button and you can control how to recline, and you see it sort of gives this illusion of the private movie theater experience, and it's really nice. It gives you tons of footroom, but apparently not enough footroom for this Birmingham, UK guy, because he in this accident was trying to retrieve his phone that he dropped under his seat, and he put his head under the footrest to find it, and at this point the footrest was up, but somehow it ended up closing down on his head, and he got stuck underneath the footrest, and he panicked and had a cardiac arrest. And
that is not the way you want to die.
It's not. It's really horrifying. It's honestly like my worst nightmare, I think, because it's claustrophobic and also just at the place that you think is a safe haven, a movie theater. So he ended up getting rushed to the hospital after the footrest was broken off, and he died a week later at the hospital.
So, guys, when you are in a movie theater next and you drop your phone, are you going to think twice about, reaching down through the, the seat to try to retrieve it?
Probably. Maybe I won't go to the movie theaters anymore. I don't know. No. Yeah, but definitely we'll have to think twice about that. Maybe bring around a selfie stick or something and try to use that to take my phone out.
And speaking of killer robots, as I was speaking about before, Chris, you wrote this article up about the Chopping Mall remake, which isn't going to feature killer robots. What's the point?
Yeah, so there's I don't want to use the word.
Yeah, and to tell people what Chopping Mall is, because some people probably don't know.
Yeah, so I don't want to use the word classic, but there is an 80s horror movie called Chopping Mall about this high-tech mall where instead of security guards, they have robots. And one night, a bunch of teens get locked into the mall, and the robots go haywire and start killing them. So there's going to be a Chopping Mall remake, and the director... he's saying that the film will not have killer robots. The director, his name is Robert Hall, and in a new interview, he said the film is going to have a supernatural bent instead with killer mannequins, which, that's fine, I guess. I guess it makes more sense too, but I, for one, am outraged that this film will not have killer robots.
I don't know if I want to see a movie about killer mannequins.
I haven't heard of Chopping Mall. I'm sorry for not knowing about this cult classic, but killer mannequins were used in an episode of Doctor Who once, I will say. Did not work out too well because they looked really bad and ended up just being really boring and awkward. So I'm not sure if this will be any more successful.
Have either of you seen the, I think, 80s movie Mannequin? About a mannequin that comes to life?
Yes, I have. And Mannequin 2, On the Move.
Wait, there was a Mannequin 2?
Yes, it's called Mannequin 2, On the Move.
Now, was the first movie was like a love story about a woman who falls in love with a mannequin that came to life? Is that, or...
Well, yeah, I thought the woman was the mannequin.
Oh, the woman was the mannequin.
Right.
It's been a long time.
It was Kim Cattrall was the mannequin, and
of course,
some guy fell in love with her. I think that might be the sequel. One of those has that plot where someone falls in love with a mannequin.
So this could take place in the mannequin universe. It could be the start of a new cinematic universe.
The MCU.
That's bad. Okay, let's move on from there to something probably a little bit more serious, and that is the Weinstein Company has filed for bankruptcy, and you're probably wondering, what does that mean for everything? And to find out the answer, I have HT, who wrote up a whole article on the site about it.
Yes. So the Weinstein Company has officially filed for bankruptcy after months of stalled negotiations with an investor company that was supposed to acquire all of its assets. But those talks fell through at the last minute, and now the Weinstein Company is officially bankrupt. But in the process, it has canceled all its non-disclosure agreements, which potentially mean that many of the women who were seeking to come forward against the disgraced former executive Harvey Weinstein now have the freedom to speak. So back in October, when the revelations of Harvey Weinstein's history of sexual misconduct and assault were starting to come to the surface, it was reported that he was using non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, to silence a lot of his potential victims. Some of the women who came forward, the 70 women who alleged multiple misconduct claims against him, broke those NDAs, but now all of those NDAs are void, according to the Weinstein Company. So we could potentially see even more victims stepping up to the public.
I'm really curious if we're actually going to see more victims stepping up, because, we obviously had people like Rose McGowan who broke her NDA to speak out. But do you think there were many more that probably signed NDAs that were afraid to speak up that now will? Like, would that look bad for them because I guess it's a legal document, right?
Yeah, it's a legal document. The Weinstein Company could have taken legal action against them since they did, break their NDAs. But at this point, I guess it's more of a gesture of goodwill from the Weinstein Company because in the process of the negotiations for the business sale of the Weinstein Company, they were going to set up a victims compensation fund for all the victims of Harvey Weinstein. So I guess this is sort of their other way of reaching out, since that compensation fund probably won't be started at this point.
Interesting. We'll have to see, what form this takes, and if we do get a series of other actresses and producers and whatnot coming out to speak against Harvey Weinstein. Let's move on to our last and final news story, and that is that Justice League is now officially the lowest grossing DCEU movie of all time. Chris, what do we know?
Yeah, so I personally did not see this coming, because even though I didn't like Justice League, I assumed it was going to be a hit just because of the nature of the film. But no, Justice League is officially the lowest grossing DCEU film. Even Suicide Squad made more money than Justice League. So in the piece I wrote for Slash Film, I sort of chalked this up to marketing, because, I know a lot of people want to blame critics and say, poor reviews kill Justice League, but Suicide Squad had much worse reviews than Justice League, and yet that made more money than this. And, as much as I didn't like Suicide Squad either, that film had really good marketing. I really liked the trailers for Suicide Squad. That made me sort of convinced, maybe this will turn out to be a good movie. It didn't, but I went into the movie thinking it might be good. Whereas I don't think I liked a single trailer for Justice League. I thought all the marketing for that movie was just really bad and confusing, and it looked like a film that didn't know what it wanted to be. And I think other people felt that way too, and it just killed the movie at the box office.
I mean, for sure. It'll be interesting to see, with where DC is going from here, and if they can make a comeback without totally rebooting everything. I mean, obviously they have Wonder Woman, and some people seem to like The Flash, and we don't know if what's happening with Batman. But it is shocking that, the equivalent of, the Avengers is right now, as we speak, the biggest superhero movie of all time in the box office. And this is DC's equivalent of the Avengers, and it is their lowest movie of all time. Do you think that DC can recover from this?
I don't know. I feel like they're too far gone to try to start over again, especially so soon after Man of Steel sort of rebooted that in 2011. 2011, yeah. Seems so long ago, but it was only 7 years ago. Yeah, I mean, I expected more for Justice League, because it's a team up of these characters who are so beloved to all of us, and people knew of the Justice League characters for longer than they knew any of the Avengers. So it's so strange to me that people won't show up for a movie that has Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, even if it's just an okay, middling movie. So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I can't see them trying to reboot again, but it's possible, especially after this sort of story comes out.
I'm actually reading the book, The Big Picture, based on Chris's recommendation by Ben Fritz. By the way, if you buy it on Amazon, Chris's quote is the number one quote on Amazon's page there, next to a bunch of heavy hitters. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I just read this chapter on Marvel and the whole Spider-Man situation at Sony, and it's just very interesting, the different approaches that the different companies take to the superheroes, and Kevin Feige basically saying that he would have never rebooted the character, talking about Iron Man, that if Robert Downey Jr. stops playing Iron Man, he just expects to have someone else take the mantle. They're not gonna do the origin story from the start again. And he said that was a huge mistake for Sony, which I mean, in hindsight, yes, it was. But I just don't know what DC can do moving forward other than to cling on to the success of Wonder Woman. But we'll have to see. But I'm gonna leave you guys here. And now for our feature presentation, I bring on Slash Film managing editor, Jacob Hall.
Hey, Peter, how's it going?
It's going well. So you just got done with South by Southwest 2018. This is a festival in Austin, Texas that takes place every year alongside a music festival and a tech festival. But the film component has grown over the last decade to become kind of a big film festival. You were attending alongside some of our other freelancers, right?
Yeah, I was there with Matt Donato and Meredith Borders, both of whom also have reviews up on the site you should check out. In fact, Meredith reviewed one of the big movies I did not see, which was A Quiet Place, the upcoming John Krasinski-directed horror movie, and she loved it. I was surprised by how much people really loved A Quiet Place. So you can read her rave review online. I missed it, but I'm really excited to see that now.
So I'm very curious to talk to you about the films that we need to know about coming out of South by, and also the things to avoid. But let's start with the good. What is the best film you saw at South by?
I feel bad because the best movie I saw at South by is a movie that was already reviewed by Slash Film out of Sundance, and that is a horror film called Hereditary, the directorial debut of Ari Aster. And I don't want to say too much because the trailer does a really good job of not giving too much away. But this movie got under my skin in a way that is comparable to The Witch or Kill List. It says that it's a very mature, dark, upsetting horror movie that even if you removed all the horror, it's still this really compelling, disturbing family drama. And it went places I was not expecting. I've already reached out to the publicist to talk to the director about his influences. I'm so interested to figure out where this thing came from. I mean, it's not a jump scare factory. You're not going to like scream and throw popcorn. But the entire 2 hours of this movie, I was just uncomfortable. Then the last half hour, I was terrified out of my mind. And in addition to being scary, it's very thoughtful and beautifully shot and well acted. It uses the horror of what gets passed down from your family, like what you inherit from your parents. The title Hereditary refers to that in both literal and more horror-centric ways, and I can't wait for people to see this. It really upset me in all the right ways.
I am excited to see that. What else good did you see at the festival?
The exact opposite of that. A comedy called Never Going Back. It premiered at Sundance, where it didn't get much of a response, but people seem to love it at South by, and I'm not alone. A24 also bought this one, like they did with Hereditary. And it's these two girls named Jessie and Angela, high school dropouts living in small-town Texas. And they're played by Maya Mitchell and Camilla Marone, who are brilliant. They have this incredible chemistry. And they're these lazy slackers who you get the impression they're not stupid, but they spend so much of their time and cleverness thinking of ways to not get work done and get out of doing things that are responsible. And it just follows them in the week leading up to a planned vacation where they spend all of their rent money on a trip to Galveston to visit the beach. And then a series of calamities derail their plans to make the money back. And I thought about Richard Linklater in that it's a really good hangout movie. I thought about The Florida Project and Tangerine and like those sort of slice of life, down in the ground, realistic depictions of place type movies.
Yeah.
And I thought of Jody Hill because this movie is foul. It's so gross. That is some of the best poop and vomit jokes I've ever seen. It has so many great drug and pot jokes. I was laughing hysterically. So it manages to like be this uber grotesque raunchy comedy while also being this really compelling portrait of small town Texas, while also being the kind of hangout movie you want to spend time with these characters, even though they're idiots and they're remarkably stupid characters. I loved them. I loved hanging out with them. And this is the feature debut of director Augustine Frizzle. And I saw another Jody Hill movie at this fest, and this is a better Jody Hill movie. It has such a great harrowing and incisive depiction of modern day slackers, and I loved it so much. It's gross. If crap jokes and puke jokes aren't your thing, you may not like this, but I was cackling, and it's so much fun.
This was a film I had tickets to see at Sundance, but of course my wrist injury took me out of that festival. What else did you see at South by?
One that's coming to, I think, VOD relatively soon, because IFC got it, is Ghost Stories, directed by Jeremy Dyson and Andy Nyman. It is a horror anthology about a guy who has an English TV show where he debunks fake psychics, and he's given 3 supernatural cases to go investigate that he's going to prove that they're fake, and he starts realizing that they may be true.
So this is a narrative film. This isn't a documentary.
It is a narrative film. But it's a horror anthology where it's 3 separate stories, more or less. He's investigating each story, and each one's his own separate thing. And I don't want to say too much because it comes together in a way that's really surprising. And it has a lot of really cool practical effects. It's very spooky as a final stretch that blew my mind wide open. It's a lot of fun. Maybe a little uneven, because like all horror anthologies, some stories are better than others. But But it's a really cool movie, and it's coming to. We'll find out a date and post this soon, but it is going to be available to rent in VOD very soon, if not now. And I recommend this one a lot.
You said this is an anthology. Are each segment directed by a different director?
No, they're the same director. But it's literally the guy has these 3 files, and he opens up one, investigates it by talking to the person. We flash their story, opens the next file, but it goes in really fun, creepy directions, and has some really fun choices and some really scary choices. And interestingly, it's based on a play. And I thought this would make it feel stage bound, but it doesn't. I don't know how it could be a play. They did a really good job of taking what was a one location show and making it into something that feels like it belongs on the screen.
Because my problem with anthology movies are that there's not enough connective tissue, and I've always thought like it would be great if the directors work together, cast the same guy that goes through all of the different stories or something. But I guess this is not that film.
Well, I don't want to say too much, because the connective tissue here starts off feeling like it's just connective tissue, then grows into being something a little more prominent and crazy than that. So I don't like I said. I interviewed the directors, and that interview is going up on Slash Film this week. And I asked them a question, and they immediately said, "Nope, spoiler." So they're so I'm trying to edge around the stuff they told me not to talk about. So I recommend this one if you want a horror movie that's really going to stick with you and surprise you, and not just give you a few scares and then vanish.
What else should we be looking forward to out of South by?
A movie that has not been picked up for distribution yet, as far as I know, but is really cool, is a movie called Prospect. This low-budget science fiction movie directed by Chris Caldwell and Zeke Earl. And it reminds me of Duncan Jones's Moon, in that it's this very scrappy, small, character-driven sci-fi movie that never feels cheap. It never feels small. It just feels like it's taking advantage of what it has to tell a story it wants to tell. And the basic gist is that this his father and daughter team of miners, played by Sophie Thatcher and Jay Duplass, venture to this alien moon to mine for this strange alien organism that creates these precious stones. And they meet a drifter on the planet, played by Pedro Pascal from Game of Thrones. And things go very wrong, and people start dying, and it ends up being this survival story where these mismatched characters must try to survive on this hostile planet and get off this moon. Maybe with some money, maybe not without any money, maybe just with their lives. And it's, in terms of story, it's very straightforward. There's no surprises here in terms of the actual 1, 2, 3 narrative of it. But the world on display is really impressive. The movie looks really good. It has amazing costume design. And through color correction and minor visual effects, these forest scenes that they shot in look like an alien planet. And very effectively, the film uses lots of dialogue and discussion to paint the larger universe. So while you never see other planets, characters allude to them and talk about them and casually mention things that kind of break your imagination wide open. And I left this movie wanting comic books and wanting sequels and wanting TV shows based purely on what I was imagining, not what I was seeing. And it's a very special movie, and I really hope somebody picks it up and puts it in theaters.
And I'm very interested in that. What else did you see? Was there anything? I know you saw the pilot episode of Krypton.
I did see Krypton, and it was only the first episode. And with all TV shows, I feel like I thought very long and hard about whether or not I should review Krypton, because I really didn't like it. But unlike other shows which played during South by Southwest, they usually premiered like maybe 2 or 3 episodes. Krypton only showed its first episode, which is only 42 minutes long. And it's not very good. It feels stage-bound and cheap and straightforward, and not in a good way. I feel like when we have shows like Legion on FX, and we have superhero movies like Black Panther that are like really doing new things and really pushing boundaries of what we expect from this type of fiction, something that feels as safe and bland as Krypton, it almost feels unacceptable. It's not even that's a bad show or unwatchable show. It's just a hopelessly bland show, and it could get better. I mean, there are seeds in the pilot that suggest maybe this is Game of Thrones in a sci-fi universe. They really want that. They really were pushing the idea of look at these various houses on Krypton in the 200 years before Superman was born, battling for supremacy, battling for the future of their planet. And maybe it can grow into that. And sci-fi has put a lot of money in this. It looks really good. It looks like the sets look great, the visual effects look fine, but it's shot without any style. It's shot without any personality, and it really needs something. It needs something beyond these recognizable names if it's going to be something special.
That's too bad, because I feel like that opening of Man of Steel, the Zack Snyder film, was so promising to create the world building of Krypton, and it sounds like an interesting way of doing like a sci-fi Game of Thrones. But I've never been happy with what Warner Brothers, CW, whatever they call themselves nowadays, does with their programming. What else? If you could talk about one last thing that you saw at South by. What would you want to talk about?
I'll talk about just one sentence throw-offs. Blind Spotting. You guys saw it at Sundance, or at least Ben did. It's really good. See Blind Spotting. And I saw the Unfriended sequel, Unfriended Dark Web, which is a lot of fun. I liked it more than the first one. Go see it. So I want to talk about Barry, which is the other TV show that premiered at South by that I really enjoyed. And this is the new HBO show created by Bill Hader and Alec Berg. And it's going to be playing with Silicon Valley on HBO this year. And it has a great premise, which is a hitman from the Midwest travels to Los Angeles for a job, tracks his target to an acting class, gets bitten by the acting bug, and decides he wants to be an actor. And what's really surprising about this is that Bill Hader, who plays the lead role, he's not playing a wild and goofy character like he tends to in other movies. He's playing a very straightforward, very upset, very serious guy who's really good at killing people. The show doesn't glamorize violence. It actually uses violence in ways that are really ugly and mean. And Bill Hader is really convincing at it. So by presenting him as being this genuinely unsettling hitman, when he starts realizing he wants to be an actor, it's genuinely funny, because the show surrounds him with these goofball characters who think he's just a shy guy when he's actually a sociopath. And Bill Hader, it's a very generous performance because he's not the one stretching for laughs. He's the one doing most of the reacting. So it's not the Bill Hader is a wacky show. It's the Bill Hader reacts to everybody who's wacky around him show. And I was impressed by it as a comedy. I was impressed by how it handles its crime elements. I laughed a lot. And this was the case where we watched the first 2 episodes, and the pilot was good. The pilot had a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of moving things into place. So when we watched the second one, it was just hilarious. The second episode really made it very clear this is a show that has legs. It will keep going for a while.
So when and where can people see this?
It's going to be on HBO starting on March 26th, Sunday nights. It's going to be, I can't remember if it's before or after Silicon Valley, but it has a very similar tone to Silicon Valley, maybe a little more serious, but it's very funny, and I really enjoyed the episodes I watched.
Well, very cool. And people can read all your coverage on slashfilm.com. And there's also, as you mentioned, reviews from our other contributors. What would you suggest people look out from them? I mean, you mentioned Quiet Place.
Yeah, read Meredith's Quiet Place review for sure. She also really liked Cloak and Dagger, the new Freeform Marvel show. I wasn't expecting much from that at all, but she raved about it. She gave it a really strong review. As for Matt's reviews, I'd recommend looking up his review of Upgrade, which won the Audience Award for the Midnight films this year. It's directed by Lee Whannell, who wrote all the Insidious films and directed Insidious 3. And it's essentially her meets John Wick. A guy gets an AI implanted into his body, and it helps him get revenge on the people who destroyed his family. It is extremely violent and extremely fun. And I enjoyed it a lot, but Matt really loved it. He wrote a really passionate rave for us, so read that one for sure.
Very cool. Jacob, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Peter.
You can find more about all the stories we mentioned on today's show at slashfilm.com. Slashfilm Daily is published every weekday, bringing you the most exciting news from the world of movies and television and deeper dives into the great features from the site. You can subscribe to Slashfilm Daily on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, all the popular podcast apps. Please send us your feedback, questions, comments, concerns to peter@slashfilm.com. And please go rate and review us on iTunes. Spread the word, tell your friends, and we'll see you tomorrow.